Rolling.
Questions?
Rolling. I don't know if you want, I guess.
Okay.
Nailed it. How's my hair? How's my hair?
Looks like your hair.
Sexy? Sexy? Hey everybody, I'm Adam Harem. I'm the writer, director, editor, visual effects guy at Transolar Galactica, and on Robot Rundown, I was the lead animator and director for the live action segments. And I guess I wrote Robot Rundown.
I'm Adam Boyd. I am the producer on Transolar Galactica, and I was the project manager on Robot Rundown.
You liking that, Brad? My name is Clancy Bundy. I am the production designer of Transolar Galactica, and I was a key member of the Transolar Galactica iPhone game.
What did you do?
I did the artwork.
My name is Brandon Smith. I was the developer for Robot Rundown. I basically did the programming and the code for all of the game.
How in the world did you get involved, number one, with the weirdos with Transolar, and then number two, how'd you get involved in this game?
I was offered a lot of beer and pizza, which there was no follow-through on, but
Why jump into video games is a good question. I think in talking with a lot of our fans and people who really enjoy Transolar, the demographics of video game fanatics and sci-fi fanatics, they just sort of all mesh or cross. It's in this really interesting Venn diagram. And so we would constantly get questions about it, like, oh, you should make a Transolar Galactica video game. You know, there was the joke going on, where the goal is to die at the end of every level. So it was kind of one of those things that just lands in the back of your head, like, I guess we do have maybe a franchise here that we could turn into a video game, but we weren't video game people.
Z Nation, a sci-fi series, came to town and swallowed up a lot of our key crew members, which delayed our production of season 2.
It's been great for this area and for the film industry here in Spokane. However, it did take pretty much every crew member that's ever worked for us on Transolar. They have been working on that show full time.
So, to fill that gap, we decided to turn to something that we were looking to do anyway, which was an iPhone game, or a smartphone game, but mainly an iPhone game.
It just didn't seem feasible at the time, but then in working with Vexing Media, who had basically helped design our website after we launched our Kickstarter, and they were looking to jump into web development, specifically Brandon Smith.
I met the Transolar guys a while back when we did their website. There was a conversation about a video game at one point. I even made some type of mock-up. I think that sparked some type of conversation of, hey, maybe we could throw something together.
It started to become a little bit more tangible. It was kind of like, wow, can we make video games? I guess we can.
I think one day Boyd just was kind of like, so let's do this. And we were like, okay. Me and Clancy have kind of realized as we've written Transolar that Clancy and I have realized in writing Transolar that the way we structure it has never really been linear, I guess, especially when simulations and fake simulations come into play. And the fact that we've done a full first season, which turned out to be a simulation, then went back and did origin episodes to show where those characters were before they went into a simulation, and then we're going to go season 2, which is sometime after the simulations have ended. You kind of get everything in pieces and bizarre chunks, which we love doing because we like sneaking jokes in and using that to our advantage to create a joke you may not notice. An example being learning how Reggie lost his eye.
What are you gonna do, cry about it? Get on the ship, you puss. Hey, Saki, wait up. You sober enough to snake us out of that ravine?
My impression is that a snake goes like this. And your impression was that a snake coils. And that miscommunication cost Reginald his left eye.
And we like the idea that we're going to set up a game in the Transolar universe, but actually have Soulbot be the one main character and driving force in the entire thing, because that's an interesting perspective.
Physically, there appears to be nothing wrong with him.
Soulbot, one of our few female characters that is established at this point. I guess you can call her female. She is still a machine, so I guess that's up for debate.
And then we're like, okay, if it's going to be about the robot, what's the drive? Like, why do we care about this robot? And then we came to the term of black box, and the Transolar crashed. They're going to want to know why, and we're like, well, wouldn't it be funny if that black box was stored inside of the actual Soulbot?
black box became a metaphor for the actual pixels we were using as well. So it was a fun code name to tease the fans with. They didn't know what Project Black Box was, and we were able to tease them with literally frames at a time of information.
Take a look real quick. There it was. Isn't that awesome? Sick. That was a lot of fun just to kind of keep that under wraps. It's kind of hard to work on something this big and not want to just go out and say, hey, I'm making a goddamn game for our show.
And so when the time came to release it and to tell people what it really was, we pulled the veil away, Black Box became Robot Rundown.
So we had to write it first. Turned out to be actually one of the most difficult writing works I think I've ever done because it plays so differently, especially in the style that we went with.
Since we were working in 8-bit, referencing games of days past, we knew that we couldn't go for gritty, tough, or anything like. I thought cartoon would be the best way to present the material. It's still horrifically violent, so I thought contrasting that with fun, childlike, cartoonish characters was a good way to go.
We knew that sound effects would really be the only thing in there, and those would all be 8-bit and 16-bit. We knew that kind of the animation would also be in that style, so we had to kind of approach the writing process knowing that we had limited capabilities. There is a very big difference between having to read a joke and then seeing it play out in front of you in a live action element and in a live action way. Ultimately, it wasn't until we started seeing them in animation and kind of coming together that we were able to realize what worked and what didn't.
I think at the very beginning we had a concept of what the game story was going to be, but then, when we finally met to talk about the entire game in its entirety and what the story is going to entail, it just blew me away as far as like the creativity, and it kind of goes off into its own little realm, stays within the Transolar universe, but it's its own story element, which was fantastic. That was a lot of fun to see how you can make something out of a minor character turn into this great storyline to really tie the seasons together.
Doing the artwork for the game was a unique experience. This was the first time where my artwork actually, aside from the Yasaki opening, was featured as a key part of the universe. I would literally sit down, we needed an environment, we needed a character, we needed enemies, we needed obstacles, we needed everything, and it all came out of this hand and a process with Illustrator and Photoshop. Creating 8-bit artwork is a lot like stop motion animation because you're zoomed way in and you build everything block by block. I actually had to go look at a bunch of tutorials just to make sure that I was painting the back screen the right color, because apparently if you keep it white, you can blind yourself if you're looking too close for too long. So a nice off-white color, pro tip. Well, we knew the structure, like how the level was going to work and function in the game, was going to be similar, so that the task fell to make them as original looking conceptually, setting the levels in fun locations. So, the classic cave level, the classic space level, environments that you see commonly in games. We wanted to, reference all those because this is essentially a big retro appreciation endeavor for us. This came across my desk. I'm making a space squatch.
Space Watch, that sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it is very ridiculous. I don't know why it's in the script. That was Adam's contribution. He wants there to be a second alien race that we've never established before in the series. This is premiering. It's a Wookiee-type character. They apparently have an affinity for Hawaiian shirts. You can't make a sci-fi game without one of those. It's definitely a very unique take on the Transolar universe.
So as the animator on Robot Rundown, that was also an interesting process because that was very different than a lot of stuff that I normally do, visual effects wise. In a similar vein to how we did the Yasaki origin opening cinematic cartoon, I went about doing this in a similar style. But in this case, instead of scanning in hand-drawn stuff, it was all elements that Clancy got to me. He made everything on the game. Every piece of art you see, he constructed from scratch. And it was insane just to watch that library slowly build up. But he would then get me the elements, I would take them and kind of create a 3D world and then animate the scene within that, even timing text and explosions, all of that in one big scene. And if you pull back and look at it, you actually see the scene play out. Soulbot comes in through the jungle, floats up to somebody, talks to him, floats out. And once that scene was actually created in the planes that it was in, then I would bring a camera in and track along and play with the 3D elements in that way. Getting the 8-bit kind of flat look, but actually using a camera like I do in live action sequences to create this scene. We obviously wanted these animation sequences to blend almost seamlessly into actual gameplay. Parallaxing is what it's called. And in the way that the actual gameplay works, that's just timed differently. For me, I was able to actually layer these layers back like they would be if this was a real world, and then throw my camera through and slide, basically achieving the same look and same effect in a different way.
The basic gameplay is pretty simple. You use your thrusters to navigate obstacles, use a firing mechanism to take out adversaries, and also you have a shield mechanic to deflect.
It is a lot of code writing. I've done lots of games in different formats. This is the first time we've ever done an iPhone game, so it was kind of a new realm. We looked around at a lot of different gaming applications, coding applications, and came up with a great game engine and decided that we would roll with it. And so we started work on the game engine while Clancy was working with the artwork and kind of putting the pieces together. And then you kind of come together in the middle and start pulling in the game assets, the graphics from Clancy, seeing where they're going to fit, and then realizing that it's not going to work the way that you designed it as far as the programming is concerned. So you start over and kind of rewrite your code, which became awesome. I think the game came out pretty amazing.
So we always knew we were going to do live action sequences, and I liked playing with the idea of doing live action sequences, but obviously tying it into the fact that it's all told from Soulbot's perspective still. So knowing that we're going to basically be doing very long takes, all from one shot basically, and make it seamless so that everything comes together and it basically looks like one full scene playing out, which is dangerous when you're working with somebody like Jade who likes to mess up a lot.
Your little robot heart stops beating, and that's it.
To do a big long take like that is not easy for sure. But we pulled it off, and I think we pulled it off really well. We kind of went back to green screen, which is something we've been talking about, like we want to get away from. And in the Origin episodes, you see that we actually build sets and are doing actual locations. But in this case, we felt it was necessary to actually kind of play on the joke, which was we were looking at a lot of older video games for inspiration. Like we watched Myst and what was that scary one you sent me? Like Shivers. We watched Shivers, but we liked the way in that live action sequences were kind of incorporated almost awkwardly into games like that, where as soon as it went to a live action sequence, the resolution was kind of bad. You kind of saw these blurry and fuzzy edges and stuff. So I like that idea of actually having, a character separate from the background and feeling that. So when Yusaki's in the bar, you feel like he's kind of separated from everything else, even though, he's supposed to be blended with it.
Well, today we are filming live action sequences for our upcoming Transolar Galactica video game. So at certain points in the game, like the opening, we're going to run across some live action. So it's basically almost an entire episode of Transolar Galactica tucked into this game. So the fun thing about the game is we're getting to really show the events that are kind of hinted at through Season 1 and Season 2. So we're filling in a pretty big gap that we've pretty much we've only alluded to up until now. But this game is your opportunity to actually see this event that greatly shaped the Transolar universe. You get to see it for the first time in glorious 8-bit.
For me, the most difficult part was just sort of learning the video game world, and to be quite honest, I think we've barely scratched the surface of what that world is, but it was fun at the same time.
I would say the grueling part of it was staying up till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, realizing, looking at the clock and realizing you got to go to work soon. So that's definitely a negative. We'll rethink that the next time we develop a game.
Now that we've done it, it seemed a little crazy at first, but now that we've done it, I'm kind of like, we should do another one.
No, I think I'm going to go back to retail sales because I'm really done with the games. This is our first game of hopefully quite a few more that we'll be doing in the future. So we're looking forward to it.
I think we did it, gentlemen. I think we pulled off this game, and I hope you, the fans, get a chance to check it out.
You can find Robot Rundown in the App Store on iTunes, and we're hoping in the future that the game might even expand to different platforms as well. And the only way that's going to happen is if you continue to support us by buying the game.
Friends know, because we want them to buy a copy as well. All proceeds are, of course, going to Season 2, not my pocket.
Basically, if you buy this game and support us, everything goes directly into the show so that we can keep doing this stuff. And that's great, and I hope you all enjoy it.
For more information about Robot Rundown, you can check it out at robotrundown.com or transolargalactica.com.
Writing a letter to Nintendo when I was like 10, submitting like 80 pages of these papers. Like, here's our video game, please develop it for us, preferably on the Super Nintendo. You know, and they actually wrote a letter back. They were like very nice. They were like, your game seems very neat, you know, and we hope that when you're older, you might be able to apply for a development job or something. But
so now you're gonna just send them a free link to the game and a big old middle finger.
And now look at me, Nintendo.